We are in Villeneuve, Loubet, first thing this morning, where we'll begin our last day of our tour.
I don't recall having entered the city itself, but we did go around the outskirts of the town as we were on the march.
To put it bluntly, Les, 100 feet either side here.
Qu'est-ce qu'il a dit, monsieur?
Non, il dit que lui, il était à la Libération. Il n'est pas resté ici, il est allé en Norvège.
They've gone out of their way to greet us and be very friendly and gracious for us, and they're very honored, as we are, to be here.
We were getting to the point where we were short of manpower, and a lot of us were getting hurt and had been hurt. And they pulled us back and relieved us. They took us back to the base camp, and they made the announcement they were going to break us up. And they did.
December 5th, they brought us all back to Villeneuve, and the force was disbanded.
It was a sentimental disbandment of necessity. We were a well-trained unit. We had proven ourselves in battle. We knew we could do what we had to do, but they had no place for a small unit, because they're talking about the Battle of a Bulge now and things like that. They wanted manpower. They wanted a lot of manpower. And little units were not much value. So that's what really smashed us down. They assembled the unit on the plains, and they announced that the force was going to be disbanded. The original Canadians would be shipped back to Britain, and the Canadian replacements that we had acquired in Italy would be going back to their regiment in Italy, wherever it was. And the Americans were going to be made into another regiment or battalion called the 474th Infantry, separate. They folded up the flags. The flags are out in display, of course. And they folded them all up and put them in the case, and that was goodbye flags. At that time, we were flying the Union Jack because Canada didn't have a flag at that time. The order was given for the Canadians to form up on the Colonel, which we did. So now you have the Canadians here, and you have the Americans over here, and here's gaps in the line where the Canadians have been standing. And it literally happened that some of the Americans grabbed the guy when he went to go back to the Canadian Army and said, "Where are you going?" He says, "You don't go over there." He said, "Well, they got it." He said, "I'm a Canadian." That's how much they had integrated. One didn't know whether it was American or Canadian. How about that? The Canadians did march off in style, the best they could. Mind you, they hadn't been obeying Canadian orders for a long time. Well, anyway, when they got the Canadians separated and the Americans separated, they brought in a bunch of trucks, and they put the Canadians on the trucks, and away we went. And some of the Americans even ran after the trucks trying to, didn't want to see them go, which I appreciated very much. And that was the end of the 1st Special Service Force.
The name of this tune, ironically, is The Company's Lament. 1943, the 1st Special Service Force had their baptism of fire on Monte La Defensa. From there, they went to Monte Maio, across the valley. From there, they went on to Anzio, the breakout to Rome, and then on to Rome, at which time they had a short break, and then they proceeded to go on to France. They spent a short hard period here in France. When they came to this place, Villeneuve, Loubet, on December 5th, 1944, that was their last time together. These were hard men who'd been through a very difficult time, who'd lost friends, and this is where they departed. There was not a dry eye at any time. When they broke up, it was a very sad time. And we've all heard from many of the men who've relived that to us, what it must have been like to see your good buddies go. After 1 year, we followed them here. And here we are today in Villeneuve, Loubet, the last day of our tour. As the men did in December 1944, the Canadians, please step forward. Step forward, face me. Canadians. Left face. March out behind the pipers. Hey, whoa.
The unannounced symbolic act of breaking up the group was meant to drive home the point that the members of the force had been suddenly and unexpectedly separated from many of their closest comrades. It was the final injury those men would suffer together, and there had been many.